Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach. This channel is mostly science fiction and fantasy book reviews, but on the weekly vlog segment, which is a little bit late because I haven't done one in a couple weeks, this is where I also talk about what else besides books I've been up to this past week, or in this case, past couple weeks. So to start things off, what am I reading? What did I finish reading? So this is why the vlog has been so late because I haven't been reading a lot until I finally put Malzahn on hold. Unfortunately, yes, I put Malzahn on hold in order to get through some Libby reads from the local library. And with that said, I did finish two books from the library. They were great. So I do have new content to talk about while I still work through book four of Malzahn. And the first one is The Blacktongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. This book was not long, which is a great positive that this is a book that doesn't overstay its welcome like Malzahn, which takes forever to get through. It's very light. It's very lighthearted. For my quick sort of synopsis is that I didn't love it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't super exciting. I know this is a book for everyone, so it is a book that I feel just didn't land 100% with me. It has that self-deprecating humor, like maybe closest to Dungeon Crawler Carl, where the main character is talking to himself in a very lighthearted manner, making fun of himself, his situation. It also maybe reminds me of The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, where on the flip side, I enjoyed the writing of The Devils a lot more. That humor hit for me. This humor in the book didn't really land as well. And then the plot had some positives, so I still gave it pretty high marks because I did like aspects of the world building. It has a very rich history with this goblin war in the past, and you have lots of monsters, all things I really love. But conversely, the magic system maybe wasn't quite so thought out. It was a very nebulous, like a light magic. So you didn't really understand how things worked. It sort of implied some things, but overall, it was a decent time, just not something that blew me away. Definitely above average, but that is The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. But with that said, I did already check out the next book in the series, which is actually a prequel about the Daughters' War. So it is about the events that transpire before the Black Tongue Thief. So I do am excited to read that because I do hope we get into more of the Goblin Wars. So I think there is a thread of interest there for me. Just it wasn't a book that I was like rapidly devouring, even though I did read it pretty fast. And after the Black Tongue Thief, I had yet another library hold come through, and I just finished reading yesterday was Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. So why this one? Well, I put the hold in, but I also had tickets to the New York City book premiere book launch for Operation Bounce House. But recording this today on February 23rd, yes, New York just got a blizzard. So everything was shut down in the city today. Everything was canceled. The author talk was canceled. And I think maybe that's for the better because this is another book that I didn't absolutely love. It has that signature Matt Dinniman style. So this is also a book that definitely for someone who is already a fan of Dungeon Crawler Carl. So if you like Dungeon Crawler Carl, you like Matt Dinniman's humor in his writing, you are going to absolutely love this. It is basically, and to be very redactive on the synopsis, is Dungeon Crawler Carl in space. So it is another rule-based sort of combat system like a video game. This time, instead of a dungeon RPG, it is a more of a first-person shooter where people are piloting mechs. So maybe like the game Titanfall or another mech-based combat shooting game, but it is a battle royale sort of game. Not to be too spoilery, but it's in the description of a secret, not secret society. I'm being very vague because I read it, but it is a corporation, I guess you could say, that is instituting a war on farmers, and the farmers have to fight back for their planets in this sort of future world civilization. Being very vague here. The stuff that the story was like that out of left field, and that was maybe why I didn't give it so much of a high score. While again, it was a fine book, just didn't blow me away because the humor was a little bit more juvenile. A lot of like "yo mama" jokes or "ooh, what did I do?" because they're trash talking sort of on the net against the two teams. There's a lot of trash talking going on. So if you're in that demographic that plays games that you trash talk others, you're going to feel right at home. It was definitely that sort of humor, that sort of that's what it's written for. The plot was a little bit predictable. It didn't really pull any twists and turns that really had me aha moments. Cliche a bit with the AI stuff, so not a complex novel, but at the same time, that was not what it was going for. It was just light entertainment, like you would expect from a Matt Dinniman book. So that is Operation Bounce House. It is a standalone, so it does end on a semi quasi cliffhanger, but it leaves sort of the door open. But I don't think there is a second book necessarily planned at this point. At least that's what I understand. So with that said, 2 books finished this past week. I am currently reading, yes, another library hold. So that's why I finally can talk about things, because my Audible library is on pause because I have another recently requested book from the library, and that is The Poet Empress by Shen. This book, I was actually got more excited because the author did an AMA on Reddit R Fantasy, and myself being a huge fantasy reader of not fantasy, but an R fantasy reader, I'm constantly scanning that to just hear what the discussion is, what people are talking about, and to find these hidden gems or new releases. So this is a debut novel from Chantal. It is a Chinese-inspired novel about Chinese history. So I think it's loosely, at least so far, I'm 36%, based on the tale of Wu Zetan. So it's also similar to the Iron Widow series, which is also based sort of on Wu Zetian's Empress Wu, how a sort of peasant character enters the palace and rises through the ranks as one of the emperor's concubines. At least that's where the novel is so far. But what drew me into this and why I was sort of more excited to get my living hold on this is after reading the AMA, which is Ask Me Anything sort of FAQ with the author on Reddit Fantasy, I realized from this discussion that people asked it that even though Goodreads classifies this as romantasy, as romance, the author herself says this is not romantasy. So what I can see so far, I was surprised that that was not the case, because it is following a very tropey plot line so far. Village girl gets picked against all odds to be a concubine with a prince that is has something going off against him, and you think it's going to be a like enemies to lovers sort of tale, but that is not the case yet so far. There's something brewing in the background of why this very powerful prince who has a magic is not meshing with his concubine. So we've yet to figure that out at 36%, but it didn't go where I thought it would go, and it's shown some dark themes so far. And why else I'm interested in this? The magic system does seem interesting. It is called literomancy. It is in the title. So magic in this world is derived from poems. So it is a literature based magic system, which is always fun. So if you like Babel by R.F. Kuang, you will probably enjoy something like this, where magic is tied to words and the emotion put in the poem. So interesting premise so far. And so far, the writing is decent, especially for a debut novel. I am enjoying it, surprisingly, because it is subverting my expectations a bit on where it was going, where I thought it would go a little on the romantic light, where some things have turned a little bit dark or just not romantic in the plot so far. With that said, what else have we been up to? What do I want to talk about? What am I also currently reading? I'm still reading The Breaker, the manhwa, the webtoon out of Korea. It is great so far. I am so hooked on The Breaker. I'm on volume 9, so there's only 10 volumes. I am in the final act right now. Gu Moon Ryung, the Nine Arts Dragon, is in his final battle against the Association. It is top tier animation, not animation, artwork. The drawing of the manhwa is great. The action is great. This is a book that I talked about, a book that didn't super excite me. Where I am in the manhwa of The Breaker, it is exciting. I'll turn the page, we'll digitally turn the page, get to the next panel where he's just going crazy, or he's fighting, or he's losing a fight, or Shiho's in the fight. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm really loving The Breaker. It's a lot of fun. And I heard the second spin-off Breaker New Waves, I think the second series is also great, but the third series, the most current Breaker, is I think a step down in quality, at least what I've read in the manga rankings. but The Breaker is great. And then now to switch gears one more time, what are we watching? What other media are we consuming? Tons and tons of movies. I'm going to, I think, start a separate movie discussion because I have so many movies to talk about. And in this section of the weekly update, I just end up talking about movies nonstop. So I'm going to keep this super short and keep the episode tight because I'll probably spin this off into individual reviews, which is what I want to talk about because I want to talk about these movies. So we started just most recently. We only watched 2, 4, 5 movies this week. First was Mad Fate, 2023, directed by Soi Chang. He is an apprentice of Johnny To from Milky Way Image. So Milky Way, that is my current movie project, is to work through a lot of the Milky Way films, the Johnny To films, Waka Fai, the Hermit films. So I've been going through a lot of these recently. They were my absolute favorites growing up in college. So not like growing up, but 20 plus years ago in college, the first time, early 2000s. I loved all the Milky Way films. I've been rewatching and watching for the first time some of these films. And this one, Mad Fate, it is weird. It was interesting, chaotic. It's about a shaman going against fate with like a feng shui in Hong Kong. The cinematography was great. It definitely feels like a Milky Way Johnny To film, but the plot was a little bit convoluted, sort of lost some of the nuances, but my wife really enjoyed it. So maybe that's some of the cultural influence on the plot. That was okay. Then we followed up with Rosemead 2025. This was a movie we were looking forward to because we saw an interview with Lucy Liu, who was like the executive producer and also the star of this one. A passion project for Lucy Liu. It is about mental health in the Asian community in California in the US. It was a very interesting, based on a true story, to see how this community dealt with mental health of the members. So it's about immigrant stories, mental health, adapting to cultures. It wasn't super engaging, but again, this is not that kind of a thriller movie. The plot is a bit heavy, but the performances were great. Lucy Liu is great in it. Then I followed up with 2005's Election by Johnny To, or directed by Johnny To. This is a rewatch for me, and surprisingly, on the rewatch, it didn't hit as much as I thought it was, even though I think this is Johnny To's highest rated film on Letterboxd. On a rewatch, I didn't enjoy it as much. I enjoyed the similarly released and highly rated Exiled by Johnny To a lot more. I thought it was more action oriented. Election is more politics about the triad election. So maybe that was it. It was not as gripping, maybe on a rewatch where you kind of know what the plot is. There's a couple twists and turns, but it wasn't as great. And then, yes, on the Johnny To marathon, I watched 1993's, directed by Johnny To, The Heroic Trio. This was a classic that I'd never seen because it's just one of those old movies that I guess I had heard about but never watched. That is starring Anita Mui, Michelle Yao, and Maggie Chung. So this is a trio of superheroines. It was very interesting to see. It plays like a superhero film in the 90s, a bit cheesy with the CGI, but the wire fu was great. The action is fun. You have Anthony Wong as this crazy villain character. So Anthony Wong of Johnny To fame, been in much serious roles, but he's like kind of a wacky bodyguard or guard of this, yeah, the Grandmaster's Guard. But yeah, anyways, you have the three heroic trios, sort of a cliche plot, but again, give it its grace. It's in the 90s, is superheroes. It's a Hong Kong superheroine film. And then on another weird note, I watched for the first time, even though I've read about it and heard about it, 2000 Survive Style 5 Plus. This was a wacky, speaking of wacky films, the plot is all over the place. It's 5 stories that are eventually intertwined at the end. I loved it because it was very stylistic. It was set to music. The plots do connect. So if you like those interconnected plots and seeing sort of Easter eggs within the same film and seeing how they all connect together, even though the stories are very wacky, is a definitely different type of humor, different type of flavor. I looked up the director and he hasn't really done much since, but it is a definitely a unique film out of Japan, Survive Style 5 Plus. And lastly, we capped off the weekend with the blockbuster, not mean that blockbuster, but the New Year film, which is 2025's Back to the Past. this book or this movie we were looking forward to because it just looked silly and fun, and that's what it was. It was a fun movie. It wasn't super deep. This stars Louis Koo, who is apparently reprising his role from an old TVB Hong Kong TV series from 2001. So 25 years later, they are going back to this original TV show where someone time travels into the past to capture a photo of the Qin Emperor. But in this movie, that he's stuck in the past, Louis Koo's character from the TV show, and another group is now traveling back to the past to sort of correct and become the Qin Emperor themselves. So Louis Koo's character, who has been living now in the past for 25 years, is taking on the current future people in the past. So it's a lot of fun. It's just an action film where Louis Koo gets to do some action stuff in this historical setting, and he's got modern tech, and you've got hoverboards and motorcycles and guns fighting against ancient China warriors with bows and arrows and swords. It's wacky, it's fun, not too serious, nothing to really think about, just an action film, but it was fun. It was definitely entertaining. So that's what we watched just this week. And if you check out my letterbox, yes, we've been watching about 7 films the past week. So been trying to watch all the Oscar contenders, a lot of really great movies lately. We watched like The Secret Agent, we watched Hamnet, which was great. We watched Mari Supreme, which I liked a lot. If you like Uncut Gems, there's a ton of great films lately. Lots of stuff going on there. So I will be talking about it, I think, in a separate video, separate channel. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but I'm going to try my hand in talking a bit more on cinema. So we're not really watching any TV because we're in this funk, but we finished season 2 of Spy Family. So we will be moving on to season 3 of Spy Family very shortly. But that is what we are up to. I'm up to myself, what I've been reading. I'm going to finish up The Poet Empress, and then if nothing else comes through in the library, it is back to Malzahn Book 4 and working through other stuff in my Audible queue, like the Sun Eater, back to Sun Eater. So thanks for watching. Thanks for catching up with me this week. What are you reading? What are you watching? What should I watch next? I am on this Johnny Toe kick, so happy to check out new Johnny Toe films that I haven't in his large catalog, but anything else that I should check out, let me know. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Have a great week. See ya.